think that somebody could die and rise again, and even if that did happen, I didn't understand how that would influence my life 2,000 years later. There were many questions in my head that were left unanswered, but as time went on, I didn't really care. I figured that as long as I kept going to church, I was doing the right thing, and beyond that, I could just believe whatever I wanted to and be fine. I never opened my Bible on my own, and I never prayed because I didn't see the point. Because my church experience boiled down to just showing up and spacing out every Sunday, I had no personal relationship with God, nor did I desire one. This complacency continued throughout middle school and high school. I only attended church to please my parents, and I only attended youth group because it was a fun social gathering for me. I was known as the good Christian girl in high school, but looking back, that couldn't be further from the truth because deep down inside, I didn't even believe that God was real. My high school years were filled with pride. I genuinely thought that I was better than everyone else because I got good grades and did well in my extracurriculars, and I went to church more than my friends did. This left me finding my identity and worth in grades and what other people thought of me. Fast forward to the summer after I graduated high school, everything that boosted my ego was suddenly gone. My relationship with a guy had just ended. My high school grades didn't matter anymore, and every activity that I had ever been a part of came to a halt. To fill that hole in my life, I sought out the attention of guys at whatever cost. This continued to escalate, and then eventually all came crashing down when it ended really poorly with one of these guys. I was very upset, but luckily for me, the next week, my church youth group was going on a canoe trip to the middle of nowhere, Minnesota. We were in the middle of the woods. We had no access to our cell phones and no contact with the outside world. Since I had nothing to distract me, I was forced to deal with everything, all of my thoughts and desires leading up to that point. I realized how broken I felt and that something had to change in my life. I also started to genuinely question whether God was real and if everything I had heard in church was actually true. After all, we were on a church canoe trip. I decided to give praying a shot, and I genuinely prayed for the first time in my life to God in a hammock one night. I begged him to reveal himself to me, and if he was really God, to help me get out of the mess that I had created for myself. I got back from the canoe trip, and the Lord quickly removed that man from my life. It was shortly after that trip that I came to Drake. I saw a poster for campus fellowship in my dorm, and since at that point I was pretty sure I thought that God was real, I decided to give Bible study a shot. I immediately noticed how different these people were. Not only did they know a lot about God from an intellectual standpoint, but they loved him, like truly loved him. I was really confused because I had never seen this type of genuine love for God before. They also loved me, and people that I thought had no business caring about my life seemed to care. Despite this, I was very hesitant. I didn't like the idea that I didn't know everything. I didn't like living with the idea that I was sinful before God and needed a Savior. And I didn't think I could ever actually love God the way that they loved God. After a lot of wrestling, I went home that December and decided I wasn't going back to campus fellowship, and maybe I would just do my own thing. This quickly changed, however, when my Bible study decided to do a Zoom Bible study over J-term. Since I was incredibly bored and had nothing better to do, I decided to go. My Bible study encouraged us to read the book of John on our own, and since I had the time, I began to read John as well. God changed my heart that J-term. Between Bible study and reading John, I began to understand who Christ was. God made man to save us, and who I was, a sinner desperately in need of a Savior. I came back to campus for the spring semester with a desire to know God more. The Lord revealed how deep my sin was, that apart from God, I could do no good. I started to see my need for a Savior. Ephesians 2:8 says, "For by grace you have been saved through faith, and this is not your own doing, it is a gift from God, not a result of works so that no one may boast." Nothing I did or could ever do could bring me into a relationship with God, and that is why I need Christ. He paid the ultimate price for my sins so that I could have a relationship with God. Romans 5:6-8 says, "For while we were still weak, at the right time Christ died for the ungodly. For one will scarcely die for a righteous person, though perhaps for a good person one would dare to even die. But God shows his love for us that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us." I was completely turned away from God, yet Christ died for me. I'm still a sinner, but God continues to bring me closer to him every day. My worth is no longer found in grades or success, but the work that Christ has already done on the cross. That's my testimony. If you have any questions or just want to chat, I'd be happy to talk after the message.